When the shadows fall and doubts begin to creep, remember together we're strong, never weak. Lift your neighbor up with kindness every day. Let your actions speak the words you want to say.
The Sunnyside of Life is a
Hello,
weekly
friends and neighbors, and
production
welcome
about
to
our life
Sunnyside.
on the family
Hey, it's
farmstead
another
here
video,
in Iowa.
and,
The
we
liberties
do
we
this
prize
because we have
and the
Stacy
pursuits
Besch back
which
with
make us
and
happy.
that is fantastic.
None of this is
because,
possible, of course,
it's a
without
big day
Christ in our
tomorrow.
lives.
It's
For the
primary
Lord
day,
God
and
is
in
our
this particular
sun
race,
and our
there are
shield.
actually quite a
He
few,
gives us grace
primaries
and
in the
glory.
state of Iowa. Tomorrow will probably determine who is actually going to be state senator. And so it is something that we've been talking about before. We introduced you to Stacy a few months ago, and we've been working hard to get her to where she needs to be. Now she's back because tomorrow is the day. And so, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Sunnyside, Stacy Besch. Hey, Stacy, how are you?
Hey, Troy. I'm doing wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you for being wonderful. Oh, I just sound like an idiot there. But that could happen more than once. Don't worry about that. All right. Here's how this is going to go. I want to talk to you today about a lot of things, but we're going to start with some.
May the Lord bless you and keep you, and may the sunny side of your life in Christ be made evident unto you each
fun stuff.
and every
I had
day,
the opportunity to go
and
beat
give
the streets
you
with you
peace.
just for one day, not even a full day, and it wasn't exhausting. It was different. It was an opportunity to go door knocking and meet people and tell them about you. And you've been doing that all over the district, actually knocking on doors. How many miles do you think you've walked, and how many places, how many houses have you visited?
Wow. Well, I'll tell you what. We started March 10th with our first town, and yesterday we completed 46 communities, which there are 46 in District 5, between the 5.5 counties. Now, as far as how many miles, the only day that I had a volunteer one day, and it was the first time I was in Forest City. She kept track on her watch, her smartwatch, and it said we had walked 10 miles. Now, saying that, I don't know how many, but if we've been to 46 communities, I got thousands of miles on these feet. I will tell you what, I'm going to throw those tennis shoes away as soon as Tuesday's over. But
That's what they say, when you're done with Tough Mudder, done a couple tough mudders, and you just throw your shoes away. In fact, they just recycle them, and I don't know what they do with them. So maybe that's what it is. You're actually, when they say running for office, you're running for office or walking.
oh yeah, you're running for office.
Yeah.
Well, that was my goal. My goal from the beginning was to do a true grassroots campaign, go out, meet the people, go knock on their door, find out where they live in the sense of these are true hardworking people up here in northern Iowa. Now, my goal was 10,000 doors. We were just shy of that because it started raining on us in Spirit Lake on this last day. But you know what? To hit over 9,000 doors in 2.5 months and 46 towns, we had some awesome volunteers. And yes, you were an awesome volunteer, Troy. You came with us to Forest City. But it's just an experience, right? To just go knock on a door and be like, "Hey, I'm trying to sell Stacy because we need her at that Senate."
Yeah. I tell you, I feel like I could. I told you at lunch, we had lunch. Thanks for buying lunch, by the way. That's really nice of you. I feel like I could have run for mayor in Forest City because it seems like everybody does know me. Unfortunately, I don't live in town, or fortunately, the way I look at it, I don't live in town. But it was just nice to talk to people. I'd never done that before in my life. I don't know. This is just the modern era, but what a cool way. You just you have a route. You kind of know where in this case, it's a primary, Republican primary. So you know where the Republicans live, and you go knock on the door. And if they're not there, you leave a little door hanger and you move on. And it's a cool app that you've got. I lived in this town or this area most of my life. All my life, except when I was, doing things in the Army and whatever. And I did not know where some people live. And so I cannot wait to see some people that I didn't get a chance to talk to that day because I saw some stuff. And I've got some questions about their house. As a guy that used to, remodel houses and things like that, I'm like, what's going on here? Did you build a garage literally in front of an oak tree, so half of your garage door is never usable? Which I saw, and I couldn't believe it. And I talked to the next neighbor, and I was like, yeah, did you know? And they're like, yeah. They built it that way. Like, okay, you're never getting out of it. Anyway, have you seen stuff like that too?
Yeah. It's so funny that you bring that up, but it has been fun. And I would say some of that fun part was I'd go up to a door. I get to see all these cool flowers and planters, and I would automatically always say something to that homeowner like, "Oh my gosh, I love those flowers. Where did you buy them?" Or "That's a really cool antique wagon. Where'd you get that?" So I would always try to bring up something too about their home. I think that's a genuine way to kind of open the door and just show them a little bit of your personality. But I saw some cool stuff, and yeah, that app was awesome. I had friends who had used this app before down at the Capitol. And yeah, I got to pay for this app, but this app, it was awesome because it told us exactly where the Republicans live and who are the voters.
Yeah.
And so that narrows it down. If there's anybody who's listening to this and saying, well, she didn't come to my house. Well, you have to be a registered Republican, to be on that app, and you have to be a voter. If you can understand, if I'm trying to go out there to 46 towns, first of all, Democrats aren't voting in a Republican primary.
Right.
And if you've never voted before, the odds of you voting in a primary are probably not very high. But you know what? We're not giving up on you. That means I still want you to come out and vote on Tuesday.
Yeah. By all means.
By all means, I want you to come out. But we definitely hit the doors of Republican voters, and it was fun.
Yeah, it was obviously a lot of work. It was very, very well organized. Dynamo out there, plus keeping all your other schedule with all of your whole, your speaking and life and everything like that, and just making this a priority to get out there and visit with the actual primary voters in the Republican Party in your district is a huge deal. Now, I didn't see your competition doing that. I've never seen, but maybe it's because I live in the country, and you did mention that if you're in the country, sorry, we don't get. So if you're a Republican and you didn't get a door knock because you're out in the country, it's because we live in God's country.
That's true. You do live in God's country. I live on the farm too, but I hope people understand and can. Respect the fact that if we drove to every town in the country, it would take months and months to pull in the driveway, pull back out. It's just all of that. But no, as far as my opponent, I did hear in the last week that he did make it into 2 communities, as far as I know from some people. So, so I don't know. That's all I know is that they just said that they'd seen him, but that's the only knowledge I have of that.
Yeah. Well, part of the reason that I jumped on the bandwagon really early is because having working with the school board and going down every year and advocating for school boards, public schools in the state of Iowa, and education in general, as well as for Veterans Affairs as a commissioner in Winnebago County for vets and stuff like that. I can tell you that it's very important that I had the opportunity to talk to the representatives and senators that are down there, and I have had. It's very easy for me to do that. I had a hard. One time in 4 years have I been successful in getting Dave to come out of either chamber or wherever he's at. Because what you do is you send your little slip in, and then the little page runs to it, and then you give it to him, and it's like I don't know how it works. And then you wait like a ding dong out in the area. And when it's a big advocacy day, everybody's doing the exact same thing. So I could see how if you're an elected official and you've got lots of things on your plate and everything like that, maybe they look forward to those days. Maybe they dread them. I really don't know. But everybody's waiting to talk to you. And a lot of times probably they're not particularly happy about what's going on. But I was able to always talk to Senator Guth, but Rowley's my senator. And so I have talked to him, but I've also emailed, called, left messages, particularly about things that affect education. And usually I get an out-of-office reply or something like that. And that's frustrating for me. Dennis Guth always responds. Henry Stone I can call Henry Stone on the phone, not that that's, but to me that's important. And I think accessibility is a huge part of the job because we're paying whoever our representatives are to go there and work for us. And not that you want to be constantly on the phone with the same people every day, but that was frustrating to not being able to just occasionally, once or twice a year, get an answer, either in written form or, so the written form was always for me like, I'm very busy with a lot of different things right now, but we will consider this. And I didn't get a response. So for me, accessibility was a big problem, and I just didn't see it. And that's why I was like, I'm looking for somebody else.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate your support from the very beginning. Yeah, accessibility is very, very important. If I'm going to go be a voice for District 5, well, you got to hear the people in order to be their voice.
Yeah.
So, whether it's being the vote or if we have a debate on the floor, you got to know what the people in District 5 are thinking, or at least people who are, like you, who find an issue very important,
Yeah.
then we got to bring that important issue to the floor. So yeah, accessibility is definitely something that I have not only committed to and I promised to, but that's been a part of my life for 30 years. When you're an entrepreneur and you're a business owner and a manager, you have to be that person.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to get customer calls all the time.
Yeah, that's exactly right, and that experience obviously does help. That customer service experience. But so that was the big deal for me, is that I need accessibility, and you're not going to be on every committee. You're not going to be familiar with every single bill that comes through. The Senate makes up its own bills every year. Come January, it's an onslaught of really bad ideas most of the time, in my opinion, just as a guy who watches them all. And I have learned, and my advocacy for the last several years, working down in the Capitol, things like that, with different folks, and I'm just like, back home, the constituents, they get riled up pretty quick because they hear all of the dumb ones first, and there are a lot of dumb ones, and so they're like, "This is the end of the world." And I'm like, that's never going to make the funnel, I don't think. But we'll keep an eye on it just to make sure, because some of those do slip through. You can't be an expert on every single thing that comes up at the beginning of January. You're not in every committee, so you don't know what they're working on in their committees. And that has happened when I've talked to all of the representatives, including Senator Rowley. He may not know what's going on in the Senate Education Committee. So it's very important for a constituent to do your homework and know what you're talking about. Make sure you've got your bill numbers and things like that, and then know why you're telling them either to vote for or against something. But I do expect that you would have the wherewithal to be on top of a lot of the things, at least what's going on down there. Certainly in all of your committees, but being willing to look up the bills that we're in any constituent is talking about.
Well, I would. Okay, so saying all that, my first and foremost thing that I would love to fight against is bill sandwiches, where they just put all this garbage in one bill.
Yeah.
We need to get rid of that in Iowa for sure. I mean, why are we allowing things to sneak in? So that would be something that I'm going to fight for. I don't know how much, but I'm going to at least use my voice to get that. But you know what the awesome thing is I have created this amazing network of senators and legislators down there for the last 3 years on my human trafficking awareness, journey.
Yeah.
I have so many people down there that if I have a question, I know exactly who to call. So I'm feeling really confident I'm not going to know everything. But I know who does. And so I always feel like, when I'm out doing my presentations, I always say I'm the God connector. I know people who, if a victim calls me, I know who to give them a phone number to. Yeah. The same thing's going to happen down at that Senate. And so I'm feeling really good about, I'm going to learn, surround yourself with people who do know. Mm-hmm. And if you don't, you know who to call on. So I'm not worried about that at all. The problem that I think I have a little bit is these bills not only being sandwiched, but if they make them let's say a 500-page long bill and they hand it to you the night before and you're going to vote on it the next day, who on earth has time to read a 500-page bill? And so I think
they have those in the state.
There's a few of those. Yeah, there's a few of those.
Oh no!
I've heard some senators down there telling me they didn't even have time to read some of these bills, and yet you have to go vote on them. Mm-hmm. So that's where it's going to be important to know who to reach out to that knows the language of it, who knows what the intentions were of it, and you're not just taking the word of someone you need just to vote on that. And I also think it's important because I think a lot of people out there, constituents, don't realize that when you are just going and voting yes or no, that doesn't mean you're a fighter. You can't say, well, I fought for this and I fight for that. And yet you just sit behind a chair and vote yes or no.
Correct.
No, you're not a fighter.
Yeah.
No, we need a fighter down there. And I'm going to be that warrior. If there's something that's not right, you're not just saying, I'm just going to hit the no button, or I'm just going to hit yes because, they talked me into it. Yeah. We need true fighters down there, and we need a voice. And I think people just have lost, they don't understand that's what happens down there. Mm-hmm. People say, oh yeah, I fought for you. I've been very, very much aware of down there at that Capitol, my Facebook has been, I've been public on Facebook. I have no problem questioning hard topics and bringing up tough things. I'm going to do the same thing when I'm down there. So just know, everybody, that stay tuned, because I know that I'll be putting up videos and talking about what I learned that day and what they're talking about and what they're sharing. Really, we are not just your voice. Mm-hmm. We're supposed to be the eyes and ears for you.
Yeah.
I mean, you should know what's happening down there. so many people blindly just are following and trusting, which we want you to trust us. But you know what? I think you should know what's kind of going on down there. And because that's kind of opened my eyes in the last 3 years, because I was kind of clueless. Like you just assume that what's happening is what you thought was happening, and it's not. So.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the sandwich bills are a mess. I always wondered why they wouldn't just, why isn't it public shaming where you have non-germane, amendments added to original bills? And it's just like, this is something about this, but I'm going to do something because we need some new public toilets in the town next to, like, how is this relative? Is it a public works bill? No, it's an education, whatever, it's like they have, the people that put that in there should be like, their name should be made known to the world.
That's right.
Senator so-and-so wanted this slid into here.
Yeah.
And there should be shame brought upon them. But I do know that that's kind of how politics works. Like that, you're like, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. I'll vote for that if. We wish it were more like, I'll vote for that because it's the right thing to do, and everybody can debate on the merits of that, or I'm going to vote no against that because it's the wrong thing to do, and here's why. But instead, it's like, it's the wrong thing to do, but I'll vote yes if. Yeah, I don't like those sandwich bills either.
No.
How do you perceive this? When you say you're going to make videos and stuff like that, this is the things that I learned today. I have seen that some of the, I guess, more social media apt people that are in the state house and the Senate down there, have some of them do that, where they just kind of, that's not necessarily every day, but every few days, or particularly during the session, they'll update and they'll say, here's what's going on. And I love that. I think that's great. Is that what you are thinking you're doing?
That's exactly what I'm planning on doing. Because, I've been doing videos, driving in my car for many couple years, right?
Yeah.
I'm in my car and I'm driving and I do a video and just share kind of where I'm going and what I'm up to and what I've learned. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the same thing's going to happen. I'm not afraid to get in front of a camera, but it's more so I'm not afraid to tell you what's happening.
Yeah.
And we need somebody like that. We don't want somebody hiding behind a curtain and just hitting the yes and no button. We need somebody literally out there for the people. And yeah, I mean, to me, it's just an obvious choice.
Now, with all of this, making videos while you're driving, are you going to be getting rid of the distracted driving laws in Iowa? That'd be great for me.
You know what I find interesting? I definitely keep my phone is magnetized to my dash, so it's never in my hand.
Right.
But yeah, I'll pull up to a stop sign. This person next to me is holding a Big Mac in one hand and a Coke in the other.
Yeah.
And yet,
driving with their knee.
Yeah, driving with their knee. And yet, we're not supposed to have our phone. So it's just interesting that, there's some laws sometimes that you kind of just sit there and scratch your head like, but they can do that. Women are putting mascara on, but that's okay. But don't you dare have that phone in your hand or, there's just some interesting things that are out there. And, some of this is just too much government overreach. And, let's just have some common sense, people.
Yeah.
But we've kind of known that some of our people have lost their way on common sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not in favor of distracted driving. Let me be clear about that. I just, we are all distracted for a variety of reasons. You could be digging on the radio, as Charlie Daniels would say, and who knows what else. So anyway, that was supposed to be a bit terrible joke that I made. But all right, so let's talk about some of these issues now to revisit. Obviously, you're not a one-issue candidate. This is, one of the things that has been on your social media. You've been doing a lot more. Have you done any mailers?
I didn't do a mailer as far as a flyer all by itself. What I did was every newspaper in District 5, I had an insert that would fall out of the newspaper, except for Winnebago County. Winnebago County, they don't have any inserts to put in, so I just put a huge ad on the front page of that newspaper. So other than that, every other newspaper, I had an insert that would fall out. I'm hoping people magnetize those to their fridge because that was not only a reminder of to vote, but a reminder of who I was and the things that I fight for. Yeah. So I did that. Then I did also lots of not only social media commercials. I did those on social media that way. I never did do a radio ad, and we can get into like why I chose not to do that. But I also did, of course, the door knocking, grassroots campaigning, which was the biggest deal of all. Yeah. And of course, the signs in the yards. I mean, what you want is name recognition. And so when you have that name recognition, I have over 850 signs sitting in yards across District 5. Well, that says something, right? That says not only your power of support, but it's just a constant reminder of there's that name, for you. So that was a big deal too, is just that's a part of that grassroots campaigning.
Well, let's talk about that. I think, I'm going to guess the radio is expensive. It's a lot of money. Is that part of it, or was there something else?
The radio, it can be expensive. Obviously, TV as well. But I kind of look at most people don't even have regular TV anymore. They might have like satellite or digital. Same with radio too. Some people do listen to their local. But when the smearing campaign started just a few weeks ago on me. Yeah, we had a big smear campaign going on against me, which, we can get into a little bit. Like, you have to scratch your head, like, why would they go after Stacy so bad? But when they started doing that and these radio stations started playing these nasty ads about me, which is full of course, lies and just a total thing to put doubt in people's minds. That's what they're designed to do, right?
Yeah.
That's all they're trying to do. Doubt and discredit. Yeah. That's what they're trying to do. Well, after I found out doing some digging and talking to the FCC, you know what? Those radio stations did not have to put those ads on. You see, if you look at the rules for the radio stations, that if it was truly my opponent that came in, dropped off these ads and paid for them, because political ads have to be paid for in advance. If he came in and did it and he's a credited candidate, they have to, by law, air them.
Sure.
If it's a PAC paying for the ads, and it's full of defamation, the radio station can say, you know what, we're not gonna air that. That's not right. So it's choosing to have values and morals as far as your radio station. I will say the most disappointing is when my hometown radio station didn't even want to back up their hometown girl. And they played them over and over and over. So what that says to people out there, because I've had a lot of people contact me that are pulling their ads and not listening to the radio station anymore, was they took money over value.
Yeah. They're going to, I used to work in radio. And so, they just, it's money. It's money. That's
right.
Radio stations aren't killing it. Radio personalities, believe me, do not get paid very much. There was reasons that I moved on, to other things in life, but it was a great job. It was a lot of fun, but I didn't, I have a face for radio, but I wanted to make more money. The radio stations want to make more money. But I, without naming the call letters of that particular radio station, I know your hometown, and so I think that's funny because the first time that they ever did live streaming, by the way, for a baseball game was about 3 years ago. Might have been longer than that now. The first time that they'd ever done it was like the final game of the conference championship for the top of Iowa West Conference between the Bishop Garrigan, the Golden Bears, and the wonderful Four City Indians. And that was the first time that they had ever done live streaming. And they cheated on the pitch count. And Forest City kept watching over, going over and say, hey, what's the pitch count? We're getting pretty close because we keep track of it too. But the home book always counts. And they're like, no, he's still good to pitch. And they had a great pitcher, and it was really good. And they did win that game. But then they didn't win that game because they had to forfeit because they actually did throw more than they were supposed to. And nobody would have been able to prove it had that particular radio station, whose letters will remain unnamed, hadn't done a live stream. So listen, you're not the only person from that area, that town, that has been bamboozled by that particular radio station, even their local Catholic school guy. That's a terrible story.
Well, it goes to show nobody's perfect, right? But also, you'd like to have more faith in your community, right? That they're for you, but that's the way. So because of that, that's why I chose not to do radio ads.
Wow.
Not because it was expensive, but when I started talking to some people that I look up to and I respect, and I was getting advice from them on the campaigning because they've been down this road before. So many people were starting to turn off the radio when they would hear my name because they didn't want to hear the negative ad. So why would I go and pay for an ad? Because if I even said my name, who's to say that they would think it was legit me, or was it legit ad? So they were just going to turn it off.
Yeah. Well, so the mailers are the same way. This is what got me fired up. I gave you a call on the weekend, and I was just like, "Hey, listen, I think we got to come on the show here because I've been getting a lot of mailers since I registered Republican again. Now I got all these mailers for all these people, and they're typically the ones that I'm not going to vote for anyway. So I'm just like, they're the ones that are sending the mailers. So I was like, what is wrong with the ones that I like? Why don't they do mailers? But then the one that really got me upset had your picture on it, and of course it's always like grainy, like you're watching some crime TV thing or whatever. And the crime that they want you to believe, and this is where it's this misinformation campaign that came out that got me so upset, was like they said it started off with, do you want Stacy Besch would tell your 10-year-old child, talk to your 10-year-old child about pornography. Do you want that?
Right.
Like you're just going around to elementary school like, hey kid, come over here.
Right.
I want to show you know, like that's the exact opposite of what you do.
Yeah.
And but they make it seem, the people behind that particular campaign make it seem like that's a bad thing. And what's infuriating about on that same placard was a picture of the Kossuth County Sheriff who had been on and he had
Dickinson County.
Dickinson County.
Yeah.
Sorry, Kossuth County. I was just thinking about the other thing with the radio station. And so, but the Dickinson County Sheriff had been on there with a quote, and he had said, his picture wasn't on there. But his quote was on there saying that he can't believe, essentially, that you can't believe that that you doubt the law enforcement community, and in all of his years of law enforcement, he just can't stand. That's why he's voting for Rowley. And it's like, none of this is true. You've been endorsed by law enforcement officers. You have people in that particular county that are deputies that are saying, we want more of what you're saying that we need to do for this human trafficking stuff. And that's that got me fired up. So this is happening on the.
Yeah.
It's back on you now. Like,
all right. Well, I appreciate that you got fired up, and I hope a lot of people are getting fired up.
Well,
obviously.
they know. I think they know.
Yeah, the people, I've been in front of 30,000 people for these programs. More than likely, at every program that I've done, I've had law enforcement there because we always invite them to come. They know that I'm not only backing them, I'm going to be their voice too at the Capitol because they're all begging for help. And I have had numerous law enforcement from Dickinson County be there who have told me their frustrations, have shared with me where they need the help, and I promise to go and do that for them. So and you were at my presentation here in Forest City that I did, and I've been in Forest City 3 times doing my human trafficking presentation. And so it is very clear to people that I do not show pornography nor talk about pornography with 10-year-olds. Mm-hmm. I bring up the awareness that this is the root of the problem of human trafficking. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm just giving you an example. I had a parent with a 10-year-old child sitting in one of my presentations. And this would have been this was in Dunlap, Iowa, as a matter of fact. And I remember at the end of the presentation, I looked over and I asked the 10-year-old boy in front of the audience, do you even know what pornography is? And he shook his head no. And the parents thanked me. They said, thank you, because now you open the door for us so that when we go home tonight, now we can tell them. Mm-hmm. Because it's a hard topic for parents just to bring up, right? Yeah. It's like, how do you bring up pornography with our kids? But yet, the people who are not understanding this, you need to talk to some kids that I've talked to so many kids who their addiction to pornography is so mass and so great that this is what starts the whole problem with, of course, online predators. Mm-hmm. So, that whole misconception of me trying to talk to kids about pornography. No, we're trying to bring awareness because I will promise any parent listening, if you don't talk to your kids about it, somebody else will.
The predators will.
And the predators will. Mm-hmm. In fact, they'll be sending your kids videos. They'll be asking your kids to do videos. And the youngest kid who came up to me and told me he was addicted was an 8-year-old little boy.
Yeah. And that doesn't, so I heard a statistic recently, and I think it was on Tucker Carlson's program actually, and it was just saying like the age now is like 8 years old exposure to pornography because of the little computer in everybody's hands, which is, that's astounding. I couldn't even imagine that. And so that's there. And then on another particular podcast I was listening to, they were talking about how pedophilia is like the definition. They're looking for 13 and younger.
That's right.
So why would you not want to tell a 10-year-old that that evil exists, that there are people that are like that out there, and that they're wrong, and that no matter what they threaten you with, they're the bad guy, and we're going to get them. But you have to tell us. And if they don't feel empowered to be able to tell their parents or their teachers or their friends, like how in the world are they going to even know what's happening? And groomers are really good at what they do because that's what makes them predators. They're They're preying on somebody, I guess is what it is. Yeah, and so those videos that you're talking about, say, whoa, well, you watch those videos, and now, oh, that's a bad thing that you just did. You don't want anybody to know about that, or all these other things. That's how they hook them, and in a variety of other ways. This is your expertise, your field. It just drove me nuts to see that is a twist, and such a sick and twisted version of the truth. But there is some, person who I would assume is going a lot older than me, that is out there, and probably just watches one particular news network, and based on whatever there is being told, they're like, well, that must be true. That's terrible. And just that little bit is, and that's what the whole purpose of it.
That's right.
So who does that? Why do they do that? It's not paid for by the candidate. It's somebody else.
Right. Yeah. I would say all these flyers that definitely were trying to discredit and defamation flyers on me, where they were paid by PACs. So we have it narrowed down to there's 5 PACs that have been paying for these flyers.
Yeah.
We have an investigative team working on this, by the way.
Oh,
So
good.
yeah, we do. But the thing is this, I'm going to rise above this. I wasn't going to do anything and stoop to their level.
Yeah.
And if anybody out there that is aware, you always know the enemy is always accusing you of doing what they usually do.
Yeah.
Right? That's
yeah.
usually what happens. That's usually the game they play. They want to accuse you first, but that's really behind the scenes. That's what they're doing. Yeah. And so you do have to ask yourself, like, why would they go after, this human trafficking? Why would they steal every picture of me in front of an audience for human trafficking and call me a conspiracy theorist? So you have to kind of ask, oh yeah, that's, I've been called so many names in 5 years that, I just laugh when I hear conspiracy theorist or a Christian nationalist. I mean, I get called all kinds of those things. So that doesn't even faze me. But for the people that are buying this stuff, right, you got to sit back and say to yourself, why on earth would they do that? I always tell people this. There's only 2 reasons why anybody would, A, try to stop Stacy on bringing awareness. You're either complicit or somebody's paying you to do so.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the only 2 things.
They just don't want things to change. I guess that's the complicity part of it, right? They don't want it to change, maybe, and they don't want to stir up the apple cart. Look, I get it that if you're, I'm not saying that there's anything nefarious going on in the sheriff's department in Dickinson County whatsoever. I'm sure that if that particular sheriff's been in office for over 2 decades, so I'm sure he knows Mark very well. Like, they probably know each other from before Mark, David Rowley. Why did I say Mark Rowley? I wonder who that was. I think I was in the National Guard with a Mark Rowley. Hey, Mark, how you doing? Sorry, David Rowley. Anyway, so don't vote for that guy or Mark. Only Stacy Besch. Hold up. Anyway, he obviously knows, and they must know each other, and so that's normal for me. And if they're friends, like, yeah, you probably vote for your friend. Why wouldn't? But it's just a weird thing to put on. That particular PAC, so I looked into it too. I like the investigative stuff, and part of it. I'm not going to get into the names, the details and things like that because, whatever. I don't want to lose umbrella insurance again. And so we have, but this particular one that I saw on that mailer, I talked to you about it on the phone. Now, this is a PAC that comes out of, that's registered in Omaha, Nebraska. The mailing address, the return address on for this junk mail was from Johnston, Iowa. Correct. It's not hard. You can set up an office when you just like sending out your crap, and that's what they're doing. But the actual PAC is registered in Omaha, Nebraska. The president is like an insurance financial services guy who is about a little younger than me. I think he graduated from high school in like 1996 or something like that. So. And then the vice president is a 25-year veteran of the Omaha Police Department, and then I couldn't get a whole lot of details on the treasurer. I couldn't figure out he had such a common name that it was like, oh my God, how many of these are there on LinkedIn or whatever it happened to be. But I thought it was weird that out of Omaha, Nebraska, and it's not a huge PAC. I mean, this is a PAC with less than $100,000, so they're spending money on mailings. They're not doing the legwork. They're certainly not out there busting feet and knocking on doors for David Rowley. They're out there sending crappy junk mail, mailers to everybody's house. Most of the time just get thrown away, except I didn't throw this one away because I kept it. I was so mad at it to see what it was all about. Why in the world would these PACs, these 5 PACs that you mentioned, be so concerned about Senate District 5 in the state of Iowa?
We've been asking ourselves that too, because I think it comes down to I'm fighting 3 giants, and this is how I look at it. Mm-hmm. I've been very vocal that I'm going to expose corruption. Mm-hmm. I've been very vocal that there's a lot of dark money happening at our state capital. Sure. This is not just Minnesota or California. Trust me, people, there's things happening here in Iowa. So when I've been vocal that I'm going to expose some of these things, and the three giants I'm trying to fight, first of all, let's talk about property protection, which is the eminent domain abuse for our pipeline, right? So, there's a lot of big money at stake, and so that means there's a lot of dark money. There's people who have a lot to gain or lose if this thing passes or not passes here in the state of Iowa. So there's dark money probably being passed under the table to these PACs to say, go after her. We do not want her voice down here because District 5 has a lot to gain with this pipeline coming through. We have, out of the 5.5 counties that District 5 has, it is 5 counties that it's going through. Winnebago is the only county that it's not. So saying that's one giant. Second giant is, of course, I'm going after human traffickers, right? And buyers. Well, we all know, as if you've been to my presentations, our buyers are in our backyards. So if we're trying to disturb a multi-billion-dollar industry right here in Iowa, and they know that I have woken up a sleeping giant of warriors against this crime, of course they don't want me down there. They know that not only may I maybe shift some energy and some change down at that Senate and that Capitol, but, I could be hurting their financial pocketbooks. And then the third giant I'm trying to fight, of course, is big pharma insurance companies. When they're all in cahoots together. So when you have big pharma insurance companies monopolizing our people, and of course, the outlandish rates that we all have because they're all in cahoots with each other, and our healthcare systems, I'm going to be vocal on that. And so everybody that's listening, you talk about those three giants alone, which are the three most money-making things here in our state, and you have somebody that's going to go actually fight about this, well, why wouldn't they be after me? So what you have to ask yourself is, why do they want my opponent and not Stacy? That's what you need to ask yourself. And that right there, when I always tell people I have a stronger voice, that's right there is your answer. I do have a stronger voice. I have proven that I will bring awareness. I have proven that I will talk about topics that are hard to talk about or that people don't want to mention. But to me, I just had somebody last week ask me, how does it feel to be the most feared candidate in the state of Iowa?
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, feels pretty good now that you say it that way.
I know. When somebody said that to me, I'm like, wow, yeah, I had to kind of take a step back. But she did follow it through by saying, but you're the most loved by your constituents. And, they have picked, when I say they, I'm talking about these PACs. They have picked 3 of us candidates in the state to go after. They have sent tons of misleading doubt, lies, and deceit on 3 of us candidates across the state, but they've spent the most money on Stacy Besch.
Wow.
So that tells you District 5, we are a big district. And because of being a big district, I think that's why I was chosen as to spend the most money on. So,
yeah, but you're still just one vote.
That's true. I am just one vote, but I obviously, my network, remember I already told you.
It's a very red district. Like, you don't have this primary is the most important thing.
Yeah.
Because, after the Democrats don't even run anybody, are they?
No, there's no Democrat running.
You win the primary Tuesday. I mean,
more than likely you're in.
People still have to vote in November,
That's right.
But yeah.
Yeah, we are a red district, but you got to keep in mind there's more than just the yes vote.
Yeah.
It's called influence.
Yeah.
And remember, I already shared that I have this awesome network of people down at the Capitol.
Yeah.
There's going to be a great influence, but it's also the voice.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about Big Pharma. We'll come back to human trafficking there because we want to talk about bringing Mark Thompson and that whole story there. He's doing a great job, and it'd be good to have an ally in the Senate. But it's interesting because digging into, who is behind, who is the biggest, so when you do get elected, it's already happening because you've been campaigning for a while. So your campaign committee, you raise money, and he personally, your opponent's got 7 times in his personal deal, like what you've got, but they've spent way more than what he has got in his campaign account or whatever. And so so then you go and you look, well, let's look up and see who are the biggest donors, which, by the way, you can do to every person who is in any political office in the state in the United States of America. But so you can look it up by all of the candidates in the state of Iowa, and it'll tell you exactly, up to the most, current reporting of how much money they've actually got in their campaign. That's how I know. And everybody, so it's. Then they say, well, who are the biggest? You see down to the person that gave $1, so who are the biggest donors? So for your opponent, I don't know, was he in the insurance business? Was he an insurance guy? Seems like he might have been an insurance guy. I don't know what his actual job was before he did this. His biggest donors are insurance companies,
That's right.
insurance PACs. And that makes sense to me now that's what you're saying. I don't know, too much about big pharma insurance. Look, insurance companies barely making any money out there, folks. I mean, you've seen your premiums go down and when coverage get larger in just about everything we've ever done. No, it's a gambling process. They're betting something isn't going to happen, and you're betting something will. And that's what your premium does. And the house almost always wins. And what's interesting to me about this particular district in this part of the state of Iowa, and one of the things that David Rowley did this past session was he wanted to rob money from the SAVE account, which is the penny sales tax for schools in the state of Iowa. So 20 years ago, schools were doing whatever. Every district was doing their own thing. And the state says, no, let's just make it one penny sales tax across the board, and then you use that for your infrastructure so you can keep your air conditionings going and keep all of that stuff on top of PEPL and voter-approved PEPL. Great. SAVE cleaned all that up. And what that resulted in was fewer bond issues so that the taxpayers weren't constantly being like, well, we need a $60 billion, playground or whatever. It was just able to be taken care of, right? And so that's worked great for the last, 15, 20 years. And then this year, the Republicans have decided that with reducing their property taxes and all the things that they've done with reducing taxes, which we could go a lot farther on that, they are running out, like the rainy day fund is going down. This is what happens when you don't have revenues coming in. And so one of their solutions was and it was the governor's idea, she wanted to take 25% of SAVE and apply it towards other things because schools apparently have too much money. And so that's going to cause more bond issues. So that's what it did, is it opened up SAVE to everybody, including your opponent, who was like, hey, I got an idea. In Spirit Lake, they were the first school district in the state of Iowa to say, we're going to arm our teachers. And they did it after the school shooting that happened in Iowa. And so they were like, we're going to arm our teachers. And everybody's like, bold move. Way to go, Spirit Lake. Still uses the Indian head on their mascot, which Forest City Indians does not do that anymore. But good for them. Good. That's how Spirit Lake is. They got a cool lake. It's a great school. They got great programs. I do like Spirit Lake. They're tough competitors, and they're also Indians. But so I appreciate that. And actually, we have one of their Indian heads here that they had carved out of metal because I graduated from Forest City, as did my dad and my grandpa and everything. So it's like, we still have. But we had to go to Spirit Lake to buy it because they were selling it when their booster things. Irrelevant. Anyway. They were also the school. They're the district that says we're gonna arm our teachers, and everybody's like, that's great. Maybe we'll do that. And the insurance people that cover insurance, they have people that cover the schools. They're like, nah, I don't think you're gonna have any insurance if you do that because that doesn't calculate into our model of how we do business. And you're like, well, that makes sense. Insurance company have the right to do that. We had actually one of your opponent's backers, now that I think about it, an insurance company dropped me because I have a podcast, and they're like, we had them just with our just with our umbrella, over all of our other insurance. And that's fine. I totally get it. You guys can do what you want. You're a business, whatever you want to do. And the next day we just got a different one from our local insurance guy that does everything for us. So like, you just get a new company. The problem is that with schools, there's really only one company in the state of Iowa. One insurance. It's a monopoly, and they are unapologetic about it. Because I've talked to them at the school, at the state state school board convention. We go down there, and they always have their their little shows, and then they got their little booths and everything like that. And you go and say, hey, I won't name the insurance company, but there's only one of them. And I was like, you guys kind of have a monopoly. They're like, I was like, that's not quite how they responded, but it might have well been. Put a top hat on and a little thing like evil, and so. Wouldn't it make sense if you represent the school district up there and you happen to be very familiar with their insurance and your biggest donors are insurance PACs, and gall darn it, if we could just open up SAVE, the penny sales tax across the state of Iowa, so that schools then could just have to have an open checkbook? They wanted to pay their school premiums for insurance out of SAVE, which would have been an open checkbook to this one particular insurance company. Right. Millions and millions and millions of dollars every year and brilliant, right? And what's brilliant about the SAVE thing doing that is that not only would it enrich the insurance companies on this limited risk with arming certain teachers in a school, which am not opposed to. Forest City's got its own policies, but it's something that is it also allows them to take money from an account that the state budget doesn't have. Like, those are penny sales tax from your district. So you're generating that, and it's got your name already on it. Mm-hmm. It's not coming from the management fund, which is funded by our appropriations every year. And so when it comes to how are we going to get this insurance covered, we're going to take it out of the penny sales tax. Local school districts are going to pay for it, and one insurance company is going to decide what the premiums are going to be, and it's going to be insane.
Yeah,
that was his key legislation. So like when he's down there fighting for people, and you're taking credit for just voting, yes or no, like you mentioned at the top. This is something he was actually fighting for, because it's actually something that he argued for. It's actually something that he wrote and wanted to get through. It did not go through. It was a terrible idea.
It was a terrible idea. Yeah, I won't hit on all of that because that was a lot. But I had sat down with, that was a lot, Troy. I sat down with administrators from Spirit Lake School. I just think it's an outstanding school.
It is.
I've been so impressed with their administrators too. And that was one of their issues they brought up with me when I visited with the administration was there's a lot of teachers at that school, not all of them, but a good chunk of them wanted to be able to carry. And they had taken the course, they'd taken the class, they had it all lined up. And then insurance turned them down and said, nope, we can't. And, I could go further on in saying that if you look at our crimes where our shootings happen, it's in gun-free zones. And of course, we have gun-free zones in schools. Mm-hmm. And you just look at all the places where there's gun-free zones, that's where our crimes happen. Mm-hmm. I'd like to get rid of gun-free zones. Mm-hmm. So just saying all that insurance company, that is... Yeah, when you talk about the monopolization and there's only one company to benefit from all this, you guys, you have to start scratching your head
a little bit
and digging just like what you did. I mean, that's what we were saying is that, when you start looking at who's to gain, start looking at that. Follow the money. We've all heard that term. Mm-hmm. Follow the money. When you look at who's to gain, this is where it's happening. So if you're in the insurance business, well, of course, and then why would you want to protect the insurance companies and businesses? Well, that's who's paying you and funding you, right?
Yeah.
I can promise you not one insurance company gave me any money. In fact, there wasn't a PAC money, that gave me money. My whole campaign was run on personal donations from people, and you can go and look at my list and good. And I'm very proud to say that because that means that those were true, genuine people that support me and said, "Here, we want to help you." I didn't have to go asking for PAC money. When PAC money gives you money, they own you.
Yeah.
I mean, this is an unwritten rule. They own you. And if you don't vote the way they want you to vote, they're either going to make your life terrible or you don't get money, maybe the next year.
Yeah.
I don't want their money to start with.
Yeah. Well, listen, and so to be fair to insurance companies, I'm not opposed to insurance. In fact, if you're a true Austrian economist, you would say we shouldn't be funding our own military. You can just have your state should only be insured to make war.
Yeah.
It's a complete. We're not going to get into that concept.
That's right.
It's a crazy concept, but
we need insurance.
It's true. Yeah.
We need insurance. We just don't want the monopoly of it.
That is exactly right. So it's like, Spirit Lake needs to be able to, and other school districts, not just them, but other schools are kind of waiting. They're taking the lead on it, and they're like, well, you're the point of the spear here. What's going to happen? So trying to provide a solution for that is fine. However, there was nothing in there about any type of, breaking up a monopoly. So all it does is creates, it solves a problem, but it really creates just an open checkbook. And so that is something that was overlooked. Now, with this whole jumping back to, these three issues, how did the pipeline go? This completely unnecessary carbon pipeline. The entire thing is based on green credits and carbon credits, and which are all subsidies, and it's imaginary. And so, but this is how the whole business is rigged, and there's millions and millions of dollars wrapped up in subsidy abuse, in my opinion, and then they're going to take it. So if you want to sell your land to let people go through, that's fine, but if your neighbor doesn't, too dang bad, you can't do that. And that's where eminent domain comes in, and that's where my libertarian roots really get strung up pretty high, because I was just like, well, this is my land, Mm-hmm. But if the state decides, if the Iowa Utilities Board is like, no, it isn't, how's that? It's not yours. We need to run this unnecessary carbon pipeline through here. How did that vote come out in the Senate, and how did your opponent end up coming out on that?
Okay, so of course we did not get anything passed again this year down at the Senate, and this has been going on for multiple years now. My opponent was not down there at towards the the good half later of the session, so he wasn't there for that vote. But yeah, I will tell you that when it comes to this pipeline, it has just been so drawn out because remember, the governor selects the utility board. So when you got 3 people in that utility board who are appointed by the governor, who then vetoed this last year, and we've talked about that before, that's where the problem kind of starts and lies. But I've been fighting just in patriot meetings and groups because it's about truly protecting our Constitution. And our Constitution states that in order for eminent domain to be used, it must be convenient and necessary. Well, this is not only not convenient, it is not necessary when you start talking about CO2. So we don't need to get into that whole thing, but I will tell you that no, it did not get.
But it's another one of those things.
Yeah.
A lot of money behind it.
There's
a lot
so
of
much
people
money.
Really driving the train.
Follow the money.
And along with that type of thing, you also have green energy stuff. So there's a lot of, other energy things. I'm not a huge fan. I'm not speaking for you. I'm not a huge fan of our skyline anymore. I don't like the wind turbines. I think that they're just subsidy cows. But there's a lot more windmills going up, and we put them on our dang license plate. Like, what are we doing we put windmills on a license plate and DNA because we
that's propaganda, right?
Yeah, it is absolutely. But anyway, we did that, and so they're in it too. So I mean, there's a lot of money in subsidized energy of all types, and that is look, there's a place for it, and the place is called the marketplace, and so whether it's wind energy, and that's a great way for you to do it, then that company, Florida Light and Power, can just invest their own money in it because it's such a great deal. No, it's got to be backed by tax dollars, which we never see the benefit of, and our energy prices never go down. And now we're going to need even more energy. Now the same people that were like, we need to go totally green are like, we need nuclear because we got to build all these data centers. So now they're on the nuclear train, finally, which was, so anyway, you're going to have a lot to deal with. And those are also some big donors that are on the established candidates out there, not just the guy you're running against, but across the board, so you've got some places like that. How do you expect to get around that?
Well, the good news is we have a good small core group of people who will stand behind those values and stand behind our Constitution. Those are my network of friends that are already down there. So the good news is that you're not going there and fighting alone. We're going there and to lock arms. And that's what's key for everybody to understand is that we're not going to be bought. They're waiting for some more good candidates to get down there to that Senate so that we truly can fight this together. Right now, when you're outnumbered by the people who are of the establishment, it's really hard to get things moved, right? We talked about the good old boys club of you vote for this, I'll maybe vote for yours. They didn't pass any of the good bills by the good people down there because they were unwilling to go ahead and fight for some of these new green energy ideas. Yeah,
and that's why it's so important to get you in there because let's talk about Mark Thompson. He brought up he got a bill of 2-3 years ago approved, passed through 100% unanimous. It's a great bill. He came up with another one that had teeth in for the enforcement side of things that passed almost unanimously, or maybe unanimously, through the House. And then it gets to the Senate, and it gets shut down in committee. I think it never made it to the floor.
Didn't even go to committee.
Okay, didn't even go to committee. It was shut down by the manager, the floor manager?
The chair, yep, would be in the chair of the Judiciary Committee.
The chair of the Judiciary Committee shut it down.
Yeah.
And he represents the district that has Carroll in it, that's where he's from. Carroll's a great town. I know, I have friends that are from there, all right? But it's also one of the towns that you mentioned that from the people that you have helped in your walk as a human, fighting human trafficking. The girls that had stories to tell, they were naming certain towns. That was one of them. So I'm not accusing the whole people. It's not,
That's right.
But this is where that dude's from. And he shuts down the human trafficking bill that Mark Thompson got unanimously through the House.
That's right.
So Stacy Besch in the Senate. Yeah.
Yes, this comes to that third giant. And of course, again, we're back to that human trafficking. Mark Thompson is a dear friend of mine. Of course, he's from that Clarion area. He's been a House representative.
He did endorse you.
Yes, he did. He endorsed me. He's back up for re-election. Great man. And he knows my integrity, and he knows he's been to numerous presentations of mine, so he can back me on anything that I say. But yeah, when we have a bill go through, now the one that you talked about earlier that got passed in 2023, that was to make harsher consequences. And people are all celebrating that, like, oh, that's great. We got that bill passed. We have harsher consequences. But when we've only had one case prosecuted in the whole state in 3 years, no. This is where people are not understanding. We might have got a bill passed and to make it harsher consequences, but if we've only had one case, there's a gap missing. Something is dropping the ball. And of course, we know where this is happening. And it's not our law enforcement. In fact, they're the ones that are asking for help in this area. So again, we can get on that maybe some other time and later. But now all I can speak about in my presentations is the stories that are coming from victims and survivors themselves, right? Or some cases that law enforcement has sent me numerous cases as well. And I share stories from those cases.
Right.
Now, Carol's name. I can't name the top 3 towns in Iowa. There is no such thing as the top 3 towns in Iowa because, again, this is the most underreported crime, let alone, I already told you, we've only had one case prosecuted for our Class A felony cases. But Carol is mentioned many times to me. Okoboji is mentioned many times to me. So when we have 2 towns who they are mentioned many times, that doesn't make them the top ones in the state, but it does make it probably the top towns that I talk about. It is interesting, isn't it, that the chair of the Judiciary Committee of our Senate literally took a bill that passed 82-0 from our House, which I think this is a crime happening at our Capitol too. How can a bill that passes unanimously on both sides of the aisle get over to our Senate? And I understand that by rules, it has to go through the committee first. But when the chair can take a bill that was passed unanimously and can literally throw it in the garbage, that's essentially what he did. And he stated, it's really not that bad here in Iowa. If you think human trafficking is not that bad, and yet you are overseeing Carol of one of your communities, it just makes you scratch your head.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then when Okoboji's mentioned many times to me, and of course I've had numerous law enforcement from the Okoboji area. We got to say area because there's many communities up there with different law enforcement centers up there. I can tell you right now, in all honesty, I've had 12 officers in that whole Lakes area who I've had great, deep conversations about what's happening up there. So why would somebody make a nasty comment about me in a quote?
Right.
Who knows exactly what's happening with human trafficking? Yeah.
It's a party town, and it's a beautiful area. Those are wonderful lakes. I mean, the Great Lakes of Iowa, they're fantastic. Nobody discounts that. Good fishing. Love it.
So they're either for the candidate, they're either for my opposing candidate, or they're trying to help stop the awareness.
Yeah.
Right.
I tell that to the parents of a victim of human trafficking.
That's right.
If the parents aren't the ones that are performing it, which is also sometimes what occurs, when they're surprised to find out that their child has been, in that situation, and they feel terrible as parents. Tell them that it's not that big of a problem in the state of Iowa.
Right. We wanted to tell that senator. Of course, I've called him out numerous times. I'm still waiting for a phone call from him in the Senate. But I'd like to tell him, come with me around to any presentation and talk to the victims, and you tell them it's not happening that bad here. Because when we talk about anything else in the state, whether it be, drunken drivers kill somebody, you're really going to go out there and say, well, that doesn't happen very often to the person that just, the family of the person that just died. I mean, come on.
Well, that's because they have MAD. I mean, you're not a one woman show when it comes to fighting human trafficking. But I mean, compared to MAD, you're kind of on your own,
right?
Yeah, in the state. Well,
so that's why that giant, again, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
But we definitely one of the big gaps is the Senate, and that was my first passion of why I decided to run.
Yeah.
Was because I started seeing what was happening in our Senate, not with all these other issues. I mean, granted, there's a lot of issues, but it was the child trafficking and protecting our children that made me, want to get in this fight. And I clearly heard God tell me to run for Senate. Well, when you hear Senate, it's like God knows that's where the gap was happening.
Yeah.
Let alone the pornography bill that we have a wonderful senator, Kevin Iowans from Sioux City, has been trying to pass that for 2 years to protect our children from the pornography, because again, it's so highly addictive. People don't understand the addiction because they're used to what you and I grew up with that magazine. And it was just pictures. Well, we got videos now, of course, that's highly more addictive.
Yeah.
Nope, Senate won't pass that either.
Yeah.
So you have to ask yourself why.
Yeah. Why aren't they doing that? And that's not, I mean, they're going to hear that a lot come, when you get elected this fall, but it starts with tomorrow. I know you're pressed for time because you have to get to the next thing, and because you're still running, and you've done such a great job, beating feet across all this. I haven't seen, you work really hard, and if that's just any indication, enthusiasm, the vim, the vigor, the clarity of what doing, and being like willing to learn too. It's like, I don't know, I'm going to find out, and doing the investigation and finding out things for yourself. It's going to be drinking from the fire hose, but we got to get you in there first. And so, folks, it's primary tomorrow, the 2nd of June, right? June 2nd?
June 2nd.
June 2nd, Tuesday. This comes out on Mondays. So it's time to go. It's time to, if you're a registered Republican, you need to vote in the primary. And then that will determine the winner. You'll still have to vote in November, but it'll be a lot easier because we have to get through this primary first. Listen, wish everybody well that serves in the offices that they do in the state, the Senate, the House of Representatives, the governor's office, everybody that's running for, they're all doing it. You hope for the good reason. But what we really want here is we want Stacy Besch in the Senate, loud and proud and willing to go and start fights. And when she says that we're going to be fighting for you, she'll have the ability to prove that she's actually fighting, not just voting, but she's actually down there fighting. And so I'll give you the last word and send you on your way. But just thanks for being the sunny side of so many people's lives. If you want to be the sunny side of Stacy Besch's life, go and vote in the Republican primary on June 2nd on Tuesday. Make sure it happens tomorrow so that she can get focused on being a senator from this district.
That's right. Yeah, well, thank you, Troy. Thanks for this time today. And I just want to reiterate that bad politicians are elected by people who don't vote. Mm-hmm. So people get out there and vote tomorrow. It's really important. Even if you've never voted before, just take your driver's license to your precinct, go vote tomorrow. I promise you that I'm going to work hard. I mean, I have proven that. I'm not going to back down and I'm not going to give up. And we have a lot of battles to enter. I'm ready to go. I'm probably going to wear an astronaut suit on my first day of legislation. And you know what? I got my shield ready. And tonight we'll be doing, since this is coming out on Monday, at 6 p.m. in Algona at the Eastland Hill Plaza parking lot area, we're doing a prayer gathering. So I encourage any of you out there, you know that God is just gathering his army. So I'm asking you to show up at 6 p.m. for the prayer gathering. That's, again, tonight at 6. And so I look forward to people coming because I believe in the power of prayer. I believe that God is raising his army and we are going to go fight this together. So thank you, everybody.
When the shadows fall and doubts begin to creep, remember together we're strong, never weak. Lift your neighbor up with kindness every day. Let your actions speak the words you want to say.
The Sunnyside of Life is a weekly production about our life on the family farmstead here in Iowa, the liberties we prize, and the pursuits which make us happy. None of this is possible, of course, without Christ in our lives. For the Lord God is our sun and our shield. He gives us grace and glory.
Be the sunny side of someone else's life. Share your light and joy through struggle and strife. Keep your heart open and your soul always bright. Together we will share this sunny side life. Be the sunny side of someone else's life. Share your light and joy through struggle and strife. Keep your heart open and your soul always bright. Together we will share this sunny side life.
May the Lord bless you and keep you, and may the sunny side of your life in Christ be made evident unto you each and every day, and give you peace.